Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And just to say too, if anybody would like to make a comment or pose a question, we hope that we will be able to have some time maybe towards the end just to have a look at some of those, so feel free. So I'm going to hand back to Tony now, if you would like to introduce Nadia maybe, and she will tell us just a little bit about where the Safe Birth for All campaign is at the moment. So over to you, Tony, and thank you again.
Liam, I'm still on mute. It's a very exciting campaign that was launched back in May last year, and I won't give too much away. Nadia has all the details there. Nadia Ramouta. Nadia has a PhD in communications from the University of Florida. She is an established author, poet, artist, and filmmaker, and is the communications coordinator with the Medical Missionaries of Mary, who are members of the Safe Birth for All Coalition. And the MMMs have been supporting women living with obstetric fistula for very many decades, and we're pioneers in fistula repair surgery. So Nadia is going to outline the Safe Birth for All campaign, what it's about, and how it aims to prevent and ultimately end the experience of obstetric fistula. So Nadia, you are super welcome.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here with you, with all of you, and thank you very much for the just really for this moment of hope, I would say. It's interesting for me because I am here really because of my role with the Medical Missionaries of Mary, but I am the granddaughter of an Indian woman in Trinidad and Tobago who was married into a forced marriage at 13, where she did not conceive because she was so young, and she was returned to the family. And then she later went on to be married to my grandfather and have 13 children of her own. So when I hear these stories, I find it, as all of you do, I'm sure, very disturbing. But also the role that education and community can play is phenomenal. So really what I'm here to do is to talk in a practical way about how some of these things are actually starting to perhaps turn a slight corner. Very, very slight corner. I feel like the weather, the weather girl here may be telling you about the predictions for how things are lining up for us all. But there's so many wonderful people. I see so many friends and colleagues on here, so many MMM sisters as well, of course, who've devoted their life to this work. So I'm going to share now in a practical way. Okay, hopefully, can everyone see that there, Tony? Yeah? Okay. So
yeah.
I am going to share, so this is a photograph I took of a young woman actually going through a doorway in Tanzania. And I don't know why that's on my screen. I hope you can't see it. Let's see. So one of the things that we have here is a quote that we refer to. Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are Anger and Courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not remain as they are. And this is a wonderful quote, I believe, from St. Augustine of Hippo that I feel reflects the very amazing ways this road to hope for Safe Birth for All is working. As recently as today at lunchtime, someone asked me to explain obstetric fistula to them, who is a documentary filmmaker and is working for RTE. And Sister Sheila, who's an MMM, asked me to wait until everyone had had their lunch, and I said I would. So then I explained to them about what Safe Birth for All is. That is a coalition that began in May. I'm going to try really hard not to reference things that have already been said tonight. But as you know, it was launched in May. And what's happening now is that the founding partners are being joined by others who are involved. Edward and Tony and myself, and the Mission Cara has come on board, which has been a massive thing for us. So what we did is we had a planning session along with Jacqueline McCauley, who is our operations person for the MMM, who sends her apologies. She's in Tanzania, so she can't be with us tonight. And now Eamon Breheny as well is coming on board with us, with MMM, with research. So what we're seeing is that these founding partners, these original few that came together, are being joined by more. And what we're hoping is that we are putting together a 15-year action plan to prevent and eradicate obstetric fistula in all parts of the world, not just some. Now, one of the amazing things is the MMM sisters, as with many others, have this existing legacy of being pioneers in doing this surgery, in recognizing this condition, in working with this condition. Some of the people here on this call tonight have been working with this condition their whole life. But as we have said before, this is something that has gone on now really for too long. And we are standing on the shoulders of giants. This is a photograph I took at an MMM outreach camp, because that sea of women and children went all the way around the corner of that building and all the way down the road. And I was just standing there and I just saw so many women and children, and these women had come so far. They had walked all day to get there. So what we do know is that 70% of maternal deaths still taking place in sub-Saharan Africa. And even though women maybe don't die, they are wounded in very unjust and inhumane ways. So the answer to this, as we've heard, and I don't want to repeat what's been said already, is that it is much more than a surgery. But if we do not get our emphasis shifted onto prevention and work with education and advocacy, we will never get ahead of this. There's been an estimated waiting time for a surgery to repair for 87 years, which is not a waiting list at all, because that's much longer than most people's lifetimes, especially in this part of the world. So what we see is that there's this kind of effort that is going on in different parts of the world. You have people working very hard. You have people working in silos. You have people who are coming in camps. So there's these different resources that are going on, and they're going on a lot of times independently or separately. But what we do know is that a woman needs more than a surgery, or a girl who's been impacted by obstetric fistula. So we've talked about a lot of these things already. There are a lot of challenges that we currently face. One of them, and I say this as much as an academic, as a communications person, is that we don't have reliable, relevant data. And I think that those of us who've been in this realm for a long time know that when you don't have relevant data, it's because it hasn't been important enough. So one of the things that we're facing is that because obstetric fistula has not been considered important enough, there is not relevant data around it. Therefore, because there is no data, there is no budget, there is no investment. The women are not obviously able to necessarily report obstetric fistula because they don't even know what it is that they have. There's a huge stigma. The women are oftentimes shunned. The girls are often sent out of the villages. So we're dealing with major gender inequality, lack of equities. We're dealing with impacts on policies and laws, which we just heard about girls and school, and the girls not even belonging literally to themselves when they turn 18, that they still belong to maybe an extended family. Underlined here is a lack of knowledge about obstetric fistula. And this is one of the things that all of us here can do. I was at a family reunion recently, and I started telling some of my sisters I hadn't seen in a while who live in England. I started telling them about what obstetric fistula was. And then they were ringing me and WhatsApping me and saying, send me that link. Let me know how to tell this to people. So recognition of the issue, and that we become this advocate, that we ourselves commit to being advocates. So recognition of the issue and this gap in education, the lack of education around obstetric fistula for the people who are birth attendants, access to quality and safe healthcare. So there are so many issues that are up against us. Why do we think that in 15 years we can make a difference? So how would Safe Birth for All recognize success? In other words, how would we know what we had managed to accomplish? I remember being in Tanzania and seeing these fields and fields and fields of sunflowers and just feeling so moved by them. And I suppose that's one thing that we have to do, is that we have to uphold that Safe Birth for All is a human right, that is something that we can speak to. We would also recognize success that there were no new cases of obstetric fistula, that women and girls impacted received quality treatment and care, that it was integrated and holistic approaches shaped by the local environment, not us coming from the outside telling people what their solutions were, And then contributing to the SDG goals, especially number 3. And then the prevention of the treatment of obstetric fistula be part of government policies. So one of the things we're looking at doing is realizing that we are not going to be able to come from the outside and implement change. We are going to have to work within the structure of what is there and work within the structure of what is already going on in order for these things to happen. So what are some of the goals moving forward? Well, one of the things, and Tony and I actually talked about this in advance, because she's a wonderful person to work with, because Tony will absolutely hold you accountable for whatever you are saying or doing. But one of the things we're all looking at, and everyone on this who is watching this and a replayer is here tonight, identify what are the roles we play and what are the roles we could bring to the coalition. What could we ourselves do? Obviously, my education, my work, my life's work has been in communications. So my knowledge of campaign building, of my knowledge of global education, or of how to, use websites, how to create PowerPoints, whatever I can do. What do I bring? What can I bring to the coalition? We need to create a database of resources, and we need to see what's already out there, and we need to work together to somehow collate what is already going on so that we can look at supporting and strengthening local health systems and to provide resources. So one of the things we're trying to do now is we're looking at ways to conduct research and data gathering, because we need to see, where is this working? Where is this successful? How is this already happening in some places and not others? We know that in Ireland, 100 years ago, this was a major issue, not so much today. So we know that in parts of the world it is, and in parts of the world it isn't. So conducting target pilot studies to build good practices in places that are getting ahead of this issue. The other thing we need to do is find ways to hold authorities to account through the UPR process. We need to come to agreements together as global communities, and we need to encourage new involvement in the coalition. So obviously, Edward has talked about this, so I don't want to get into too much detail here, but one of the things we're all doing is we're being advocates to identify that this is a human rights and a human dignity issue. This is not a girl or a woman's individual problem. It is not her problem. It is a much bigger issue. And the idea that safe birth be a human right and a human dignity is something that most people are surprised to find out that it is not already. We need to look at the religious at the UN. We need to look and work and contribute together. We need to look at the religious paths that are already there, at the people who are already advocating, and get material to those people. We need to work with mass media and social media and technology. And again, we need to talk about this. We need to actually bring it up. We need to have awkward conversations. And we need to let people know about the Safe Birth for all.com website. We need to let them know they can find information on Facebook. One of our team, Janice, does an incredible job with updating our news and putting all this together. So it is amazing that a little country like Ireland has traditionally done so much on the global platform of change making and of bringing a difference and of making a difference. And I love this quote from Margaret Mead: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has." So one of the things that we need to see in this vision, that if we have a concerted effort to work together, to form a coalition, to bring some resource to this, to bring our intelligence, our experience, our knowledge, our passion, our joy in working with one another. It is amazing to sit around the table with 6 different people and see how much can be done in 6 months by those 6 people being willing to send an email, to pick up a phone, to ask for information, to work together, and to respect and enjoy the journey, that this desire to know that in 15 years, this condition could be different for girls and women around the world. That motivates us. It encourages us. And I recently wrote an article about this, and I started to get some support and some information and hearing from people, because how much we care is our currency. We've heard tonight about girls as currency and cows as currency. Well, how much we care and our determination and our perseverance and our unwillingness to accept this anymore, our absolute refusal to let girls and women suffer one more day, is our currency. And I feel that anyone who is on this call tonight, who's given up their evening to be here, anyone who is going to watch this on the replay, I strongly encourage us all that although we live and breathe in times of challenge and in times of darkness, I think of my grandmother at 13, a scared girl being sent away from her family. And I see in this situation an opportunity for us all to make a difference. So thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. I know our information will be shared, and we are in the baby infant stages of this Safe Birth for All campaign. But I am absolutely delighted to see how quickly things have happened and how much support we've had, including Sabina Higgins, the president's wife in Ireland, coming to our launch, really supporting this launch, and in so many other people saying, what can I do? So I'm really excited to see where we will be a year from now. So thank you.
Thank you indeed, Nadia, and you gave a wonderful presentation there. And we noticed too that you put up some of the social media addresses and various, but what we will do is we will make sure that they will be sent out to others. Another thing we might ask you to do is the article that you wrote, if you could send us a copy, we would happily share that too. And you have urged us to join a coalition and to be part of a campaign. I like what you did describing what you would see as success in terms of what success might look like, and then how you outlined goals moving forward. And I like too how you referenced cows being the currency in South Sudan and in other countries, but that our currency is effectively our voice, what we can do individually and alone. And we can see too how some of what you have said is already being done by Edward in terms of challenging the UN mechanisms of the Universal Periodic Review and wherever else. But that there is, what I really liked about what you said is that there is a role for every single person here who's listening this evening, and for those who watch on the replay. So it's not just for others to do, but for us to do with others, that this campaign is in its infancy. And again, I'm going back to mention the fact that there is so little known about it, and that this is just one small step in trying to address that issue for a start, and also to address the unfairness of the whole issue, to make sure that others will learn a little bit more. So thank you once again, Nadia, for a really wonderful presentation.
I do love the way you're giving me feedback here, but I do feel the enemy here is apathy.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Edward said. It's just not known. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay. Thank you indeed. We're coming up against the clock a little bit, but I think we may have a little bit of time, because we did ask, or did offer the option for people if they wanted to pose a question or a comment or whatever. And I'm not sure that too many have. Perhaps it has been that informative that maybe we haven't had the necessity for questions and answers. Maybe all the questions and answers, or the questions were answered by the participants or by the speakers or contributions tonight. And I can see another link has gone into Facebook. So if it's okay with Jerry and Kevin, I might just move past that because of the time that we're at, because it doesn't look like that there are questions. But what I could do is, if anybody, there are only about 37, 38 people, if somebody for a moment or two, if they wanted to unmute maybe, and if they wanted to tell us maybe something that stays with them. And then straight after that, what we might do is I'm going to go to Jim, who might tell us a little bit about what we can do online. So maybe if there's anybody that's there, and if they would just like to unmute maybe, and they might like to offer a word or a comment or a thought, please feel free to do so. Mary Ryan, go ahead. Hi, nice to see you, Mary. How are you?
Well, thank you. I was very surprised to hear that this was common in Ireland some years ago. I don't know when. I never heard of it. I would have heard that a lot of women died in childbirth, and I would just love to hear a little bit more about that, if possible.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary. We might come back to Nadia about that. I think it was Nadia referenced that point.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else like to offer a comment or a question or a thought? Okay, well, Nadia or Tony, maybe, I can't remember who mentioned that. Was it you, Nadia, who mentioned that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah,
it was me. And I think that obstetric fistula is something that was prevalent in most cultures early on in the way that women gave birth. So it was something that occurred and that happened and that would have been treated. And I know in the United States as well, Tony, maybe you can help me with this as well, but I know that up to about maybe about 100 years ago, it was something that occurred. We do have some OBGYNs on here as well, but it was something that does and has occurred in cultures, and it was something that women experienced. But as the as the introduction of antenatal care became more common, and as women had less home births and had more skilled attendants, these are things that were less likely to occur. In fact, actually, there was an article, somebody else may want to chime in on this, that there was some cases of this occurring in the UK recently, that there had actually been a resurgence of some cases that were going on. And they were saying that part of that was because that some women were moving away from antenatal care and were not getting either having access or choosing access to antenatal care. So obstetric fistula is something that did occur in a number of cultures very commonly and does not occur very frequently now, and is starting to reoccur in cultures where people are moving away from antenatal care. So it really is fascinating. In fact, I will try to map that in some kind of way and put some kind of article together around the trend of it. So I will try to get more specifics back to the group.
Thank you indeed, Nadia, for that. Thanks, Nadia.